Stop.
Always. Before, I mean, it just seems like this year I really can feel the age, but I've been in education for 36 years as a K-12 teacher. I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 grade levels in there that I haven't taught explicitly, even though I've been in almost every classroom. I've been a classroom teacher, a literacy specialist in my district. Wear many hats, working with literacy. I should change the title of this. This isn't necessarily just a writing workshop or a writing session. It is a literacy session. So everything that I do really connects to both reading and writing. So you can't do one without the other. I'm going to really talk about that 60-40 rule. The 60-40 rule from Schmoker is that he says if we want to move the dial, our students need to be reading 60 minutes across our day every day. And they need to be writing 40 minutes every day across our day if we want that dial to move. So be thinking about that in your building. What's our 60-40 rule? Are we allowing our kids to read and not write independent reading? Silent reading does not fit in that. What other kind of reading are we doing other than silent reading across our day? And then what kind of writing is happening in your building? 40 minutes across the day, every day is going to move that achievement dial. So be thinking about that as well, but really this isn't writing, this is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So I'm excited about sharing some strategies. My gig is to have you leave with strategies you can apply immediately. With that, I'm going to give you a little bit of research, a little bit of pedagogy, but I want to get right into the strategies because that's what's going to be most beneficial for you. So that's one thing that I want to make sure I cover in the next 2.5 hours. Right now, I am not in a classroom. However, I have not lost my credibility because I go into classrooms and model all the time, all the way from kindergarten to high school. So just want you guys to know I'm still in the classroom because I want teachers to see that the strategies that I give you work, number one, and also an opportunity to have my students be my teacher because they are really truly my teacher. That's how I get better, right? I love you all, but I love my students better because they're the ones that give me feedback and tell me, Westerberg, that didn't work, or Westerberg, that was really a good strategy. If it's hard, it's usually they don't like it. So it's not because they don't like the strategy, it's because I'm making them think, and then they'll say, well, I don't like that strategy. And I'll say, well, why? It's because it's easy, too hard. Usually they'll tell me it's too hard. So all the strategies I feel like I'm giving you have been tried with all students all the way from kindergarten through high school. So I want you to know I've been in your classroom, been in your shoes. I'm excited about that. I have 6 grandchildren who are the center of my universe. My husband doesn't like to hear that, but my grandkids are really truly the heart. And I always look forward to going back and spending time with them. And I actually have them, they're my guinea pigs too. I'll go, hey, Lucy, come on over. You're a middle schooler, come on over, let me try this out on you. So I use them as my research and also as my practice. I've been a state scorer at the assessment level for Smarter Balance for my state in the state of Washington. So I've been a content reviewer, an item writer. I've scored both reading and writing on Smarter Balance. So I have a lot of experience that I'm bringing back into my own classroom to make sure that my kids are going to be successful on the Smarter Balance, both on the computer adaptive side and on the writing side, which is that performance task that your students have to do, which oftentimes is very difficult. The goal for the assessment, you guys, if you're not happy with your scores, how do you get happy about your scores? It's by implementing all of these strategies along the way so that when they get to the Smarter Balance, it isn't something different they're doing. The questions they see are the questions you're going to be asking in your classroom. The kinds of writing they're going to do is writing you are doing in your classroom. So all of the things that are going to help them be successful is to bring it back into your classroom with strategies across your year. I get this, we shouldn't be teaching to the test. What? Yes, we should. If it's a good test and it's testing standards and it's a high stakes test that we need, yes, we should be teaching to the test. And is it difficult? Yes, but it is a test that our kids need to be able to pass. So we do need to teach the test. And by the way, that excuse of it, we can't be teaching the test, you guys teach the test every week. Don't you teach to what you're going to assess them? Right. So it's no different. So after being a part of the state assessment, I realized that I had to change some of my practices in my classroom, the way that I question my kids, the kinds of writing that I need my kids to do. I changed everything, and I'll tell you, our dial didn't move in our district when we all started to play the same game. That's the other thing you need to think about. Think about your building. Are you all playing the same game when it comes to strategies and skills you're teaching your students? Is everyone part of the problem, the solution in terms of reading and writing? Okay, where are you in your building in terms of team players? Turn and talk real quick, just for a minute. Turn and talk to the person next to you. Where are you with your district? Are you guys team players? Do you even know what your partner's doing? I love how you're doing yourself. Nice job. Right, 3, 2, and 1. Back up here, guys. I imagine we're probably all over the place when it comes to commons, which you need to think about. What are the commons in our building? This is a great conversation to go back to your building and say, what are our commons in our building across disciplines? Do we all speak the same language when it comes to common language, common skills that we're teaching, common strategies, common tools that we have allow our kids? What are we all on the same page? Because you guys, our kids need multiple hits on strategies in order for them to be that strategy to be a part of their schema, that they can take it anywhere they go and be successful. So if I'm the only one teaching them a multi-flow, chances are they're not going to get a lot of practice on a multi-flow, which is the strategy that goes with cause and effect. And if I'm the only one teaching it, more likely it's going to stay in their short term, not their long term, and they're not going to be able to use it in other disciplines. But what if I am the ELA teacher and I teach them cause and effect and a multi-flow, and they go to their science teacher and he's doing the same thing, and they're going to a math teacher and they're using the same thing where appropriate? You see how that matters for kids? They're leaving us with strategies that are going to help them be more productive people when they leave us. So it's really important you go back and think common language, I call them the comments, common language, common strategies, common skills, common activities, common high expectation. Because by golly, you guys, if I'm doing all that in my room and no one else is, what happens is we're pitting teacher against teacher. We're pitting teacher against teacher when I'm the only one with my bar up here. They're not going to see that I have high expectations. They're going to see I'm the hard teacher. And in fact, they'll say I'm the mean teacher. And they'd rather go to Mr. Hilldahl because Mr. Hilldahl doesn't make them do anything other than watch his PowerPoint presentation and lecture, right? And I didn't have to take notes on my own because my teacher gives me the notes. You see what we're doing when we're not all on the same page having comments? Really important conversation for you guys to have when you go back to your building. Second question here, you guys. How many of you have been to one or more of my sessions? Raise your hand if you've been to one or more of my sessions. Yay. I see some hands that have never been to my session. So this is going to be like the fire hose. It's a lot of new information for you, but all good stuff that you need to have. Let's talk about disciplines. ELA teachers. Oh, see the majority. Science teachers. Social studies teachers. Any other related arts teachers. Special ed kind of our guys, we need more science and social studies, and ELA, you cannot do this on your own. Impossible to do this on your own. We all need to take a part in reading and writing. And by the way, our standards say that all of us need to do that. So if you're an ELA teacher, fabulous, but you need to have conversations with your disciplines to say, okay, I'm going to focus on literary. Can you focus on nonfiction or informative? That's the only way we're going to be able to tackle all of these standards that we need to do. So when I was thinking about what to present today, I knew that I would have a mix because this is the biggest group we've ever had at the secondary level. It really makes my heart happy knowing that you're all here. But I know that I've got a mix kind of like in a classroom. We're going to talk about really differentiating. So I'm not going to apologize for repeating something for the people who've been in here, because we often too need more hits on it. So if you've seen it, great. If you've used it, even better. But if you've got it packed down, it's something you use on a regular basis, then I want you to think, what more can I do with that? Okay, so that you're still participating, but you're thinking, what more can I do with it? What piece did I leave out that maybe I can go back and tweak? This spring is an opportunity for you teachers to practice the strategies for you so that you can get ready to implement them next year. So practice, make mistakes, but practice, because if you wait until next fall, you probably will lose it and it'll stay in your binder collecting dust, even though we know it's a really good strategy. So that's the other thing, is just immediately think about 2 or 3 things that you could take from today and actually apply next week. And it's really for your benefit as well. Our kids need, 70% of our kids need at least 100 hits on a new strategy skill before it becomes part of their schema. 100. They even have done research for teachers. They say when teachers learn a new strategy, they need 25 practices in order for it to become a part of your toolkit. And also, more importantly, that you can use it for that teachable moment when you go, they're not getting it. Oh, I can pull this strategy out, but I'm planning on it, but because I know they're struggling and I know they need this, I'm going to pull this out, even though I wasn't thinking about that. So the more you use it, the more it becomes something that you can pull at a last minute notice when you say, my kids can't do this. What do I give them? So that's the other thing. So we're going to focus on short constructed responses, because this is informative. I want to make sure that we really have a good handle on what is a short constructed response, why is it important that we even focus on short constructed response. A couple of different reasons. Each short constructed response has a different skill attached to it. So on Smarter Balance, they're going to be asked to describe, to compare, to focus on the skill of cause and effect, to generalize, to draw a conclusion, to infer. All of those are potential short constructed responses. And I want my students to be able to read the question and to say, what kind of thinking chart do I need to help me organize my thinking so I can write that little small paragraph? Okay, that's the key to this. That is totally writing about what they're learning. The other important part of this, guys, is if you start with short constructed response and you do lots of paragraph writing all year long, that translates into good essay writing. So a lot of researchers, a lot of people out there in the education world are saying we need to do more little writing, less big writing. More little writing, less big writing. Turn and talk. Why do you think? What do you think? That is.
Absolutely. That's right.
Okay, 3, 2, and 1. Guys, if kids can write a well-constructed paragraph, a compare paragraph, a cause and effect paragraph, a descriptive paragraph, whatever paragraph they can do, what you've done is set them up in terms of organization for an essay. That's the reason you do it. Once they understand the structure of a paragraph, and you guys, from secondary teachers, I get this all the time. They cannot write a paragraph. Well, let's back it up. They can't even write a complete sentence. Are you there? Are you seeing that in your classroom? So we got to start with, are we all helping them write good sentences? That's part of my instruction. Okay, not the grammar part, not the parts of speech, even though I have to build that in there, but how to write different kinds of sentences. You have strategies for that. If you don't, I have them for you. Lots of great strategies to teach them how to write an OP, a however, a because sentence, an and sentence, a so sentence. All these sentences that I teach them they have a technical name, but kids don't remember them. So I'm going to teach them an and sentence and a list sentence and an OP, occasion position sentence, and a however. and and a because. All of those are different ways of thinking that translate into a sentence. But you guys, if we just say write a sentence or write a paragraph with no instruction, we get what we get, right? We get what we get. So we have to teach them even those little pieces. What I have found that even if I don't have time to get to the essay, if I've done a great job with paragraph writing, all I have to tell them is, I just stretch the reds, just stretch that. You got to stretch your green, and you got your introduction, you got to stretch your conclusion. Guys, your yellows and red, it's the same organization. The only thing that you have to do is you have to give me a little bit more in the evidence. You have to stretch your introduction. You have to stretch your conclusion. So you see, I've already taken care of the organization by focusing on paragraph writing. So that's the push for me. The bar is high. What paragraphs are you teaching them to write right now? Okay, so as we go through strategies, important. The other thing is you can't just assign a paragraph, you guys. You have to take that paragraph that's in your assessment of whatever you're doing, and you have to explicitly teach them what they need to do before they write their paragraph. They have to annotate while they're reading. They have to take notes. They have to rough draft. Those three are bigger grades for me than the final. Why? Why would I spend so much time grading that? Annotating, the note taking, the rough draft before I even get to the final. What do you think? Turn and talk.
All that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, good. No, you're asking.
Nice conversation. Good job, guys, thinking about the importance. Here's the other reason why I want my students to understand the writing process. They know y'all teach it. I know you, especially my ELA teachers. I know you all teach the writing process, but do they own it? And do you actually test them on what the steps of the writing process is? You should. Okay, make a note. Test your kids to see if they can even tell you what the steps are. I know you teach it, but do they know it? I did this for the first time way back because I thought, gosh, I do the writing process all the time. Of course they know it. And I was pushed to just assess my kids to see if they could even just give me the steps of the writing process. And you guys, they could not. See, they wait for you. It's like we assign it, they do it. They don't really understand these are the steps that I need to go through. The other thing that's really important about this writing component, the steps before they write, is you guys, the smarter balance is going to ask them to write based on a performance task, either an informative or an argument, right? They're gonna have to do one or the other. How many of you know that your kids could care less about the smarter balance and put very little effort?
Yes, because they told me.
Yeah, why do we have to do this? You see, I think that this purpose, this why is really falls on our shoulders. We're not giving them the why, and we're not giving them the purpose of that. What is the purpose of that? I want my kids to see that smarter balance as just another opportunity to show what they know. It's just another opportunity. However, they're not going to do it well unless I teach them. You have to annotate, you have to do tap plus F, you have to annotate, you have to put it in some kind of a note-taking system, and you have to rough draft your paper, your piece on paper before they can actually type on the computer. Now I have to practice that because do I still have students who go into the test-taking situation and start typing? Yes, yep. Very little because they get my stinky eye. Because all year long, I'm preparing them to be better readers and writers and to show what they know when they do that smarter balance, which truly, you guys, is a high bar for kids. We got to teach them high leverage strategies. So they have to know what they have to do before they get to smarter balance. My students even know how many sticky notes they need to have, how many color highlighters they need to have, how many number of pieces of note paper they have to have before they even walk into the assessment room. So I have to practice that, or they're not. They're just going to go directly to taking the test. Can they have as many papers and sticky notes? Yes, they can. So sometimes we get this feedback that they can't have anything. They can have as much paper, sticky notes, highlighters as they want. We have to collect it and throw it away. But nonetheless, we have to teach them this is what you need in order to be successful with that prompt you're going to get. So really, really important that we teach these things along the way. Very important, you guys. Talking about assessment too. On your assessment, here's what I'd like you guys to think about. Could you do less and more specific on your assessment questions? So I don't want to score 40 questions. I don't have time to do that, by the way. So I just learned that I'm going to give them 4 or 5 questions. One's going to be a multiple choice question. One's going to be a multi-select question. One's going to be a hot text where they have to manipulate the text in some way. And one's going to be a short constructed response. That's all my assessment looks like. Because those are the kinds of questions they're going to get where? On the smarter balance. So I'm going to mimic that in my room and give them 1 multiple choice, 1 multi-select, one hot text, and 1 short constructed response. And guess what? We're going to correct that together. It's their job to score their own work, not so much me. They have to be required to, to really be a part of their own learning. So that's something to think about. Am I giving them too many questions? Do I need to? Can I know if they know that skill with 1 question, maybe 2? I'd say you could double those up, but I try not to just because, 6 periods during the day and 100 plus kids, hard to correct all of that. Here's our agenda. This is really more for a full day, but we'll get to some pieces of that. But I'd like to start with our first thinking chart, which is really important for informative reading, writing, and thinking. So we're going to start with what we call the, and it's going to be our part of our bell ringer. So we're going to be creating a thinking chart. What chart is this? And the skill for this thinking chart is classifying. What's the skill, everyone? Classifying. Okay, I'm going to move to my dot camera, get out a blank piece of paper. And here's why. You're going to see in your packet, there is a handout that has the actual template, but I want you to do it on paper first. So, on paper so that that's our goal. Now for my students, if I'm differentiating, usually my first time at this, I give them the visual representation, the template. But after that, you guys, I have to make them produce this on their own. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to take a blank piece of paper, landscape, with the tree chart. Blank piece of paper, white copy paper. The thing when I'm having them do a tree chart is I always like to start with what I call my frame. Let's get our frame on here. There we go. And let's do what I call my frame. It's just my box around my visual representation. Okay, we're going to label this chart because I want them to know the chart and know the skill that they're using. So this is called a tree chart, different than a T chart. Different than 2-column notes, though they all really focus on classifying. So this is the tree chart. Guys, the tree chart is the strategy. The tree chart is the strategy for the skill of classifying, sorting their information. There's not one discipline, one class that I know that wouldn't be able to use this. Okay, everyone can use it in some way. I'm going to show you one way that I use it, but there's just a variety of ways in all content areas. Okay, so it's classifying. This is called the frame. The frame has a purpose, you guys. The frame is really focusing on metacognition. Metacognition. What do I know? What do I know? How do I know what I know? To think about their thinking, to tell me where they got their information. So the frame is really important to kind of metacognition, to go deeper in their thinking. So it starts with a shape on the top, kind of a rectangle. And this is where we're going to put T equals. T stands for topic or title. Okay, whatever you're doing, your concept, that is green. Let's take our green and highlight that green. Our brain loves color. Our brain loves symbols. The dendrites go crazy when we give them a highlighter. It's amazing. Or we give them a symbol. Our brain just really lights up. The dendrites go crazy. So we're going to come down. And now the second part of this is we're going to do a line across the top. I always start with 3 boxes, knowing that I might have more, but we're just going to start with 3, knowing that we might have more depending on what we're doing. Okay, those are our key ideas. Those are our stars. So if you don't want to use color, you can use a symbol. Those are yellow. Where we slow down, and think about what our main idea is. We think about what our categories are, what our criteria is, what our steps of a process are. But this depends on what our goal is. Let's just make a list of what these could potentially be. These could be the main idea of the topic. This could be criteria that I want them to think about, or these could be steps of a process. So depending on what my target is that day, I want them to either work on the 3 key main ideas, the 3 criteria, or the 3 steps of a process or more. Okay, so remember, I can start to build others if I need to. I can continue to keep building more of them. Now, underneath is where we're going to provide evidence for each one of these. We're just going to start with the dash. On this one, folks, I'm not looking for layered elaborations here. When they do 2-column notes, they do layered elaborations, but here it's just, let's get our significant details. So this is, we're going to label a significant detail. I'm going to put a significant E because it's evidence, a significant E, evidence. Now, what you want them to know is that these evidence right here are what I call text-based evidence. That means it came from a speaker, it came from an audio, it came from a video, it came from an article, a source. It's a source, okay? These are text-based evidence that have to come from sources. The other thing, guys, is you can't just allow them to read one piece of mentor text. They have to read at the secondary level up to 5 sources, you guys, on the Smarter Balance. That's called lack of, if they can't do it, it's called they don't have the reading stamina or the writing stamina. Anywhere from 3 to 5. Some schools, some districts, some states have up to 5 pieces of text. Some states have 3 or 4. So depending on your state, but at least 3, think about it. They're going to have to read 3 different pieces of sources that's at grade level. Think about how many of your students are struggling readers and writers, and then it can't even attack that really hard. So we have to start building stamina by teaching them. Every time I give you an article, I'm going to pair it with something else. Make a note of that. Every time you give them something to read, pair it with something else. Another article, another video, a literary piece, an audio. Pair it with something that they have to think through too. Because the questions they have to do on the hot text are hard. 4 sources and tell me where you found the claim. Is it in 1, 2, 3, all 4, or none at all? So there's lots of things that they have to do with sources across the way. Okay, so these are our categories. Take a sticky note, not a pink, but a different color sticky note, because I want to show you 2 ways that you can play this game. I kind of call it a game, but okay, so here's the 2 strategies here. One's the easier strategy. I can spell right this morning. 2 strategies, okay? The first strategy is called a closed sort. In a closed sort, the teacher gives the yellow. Because the yellow is the main idea, is the criteria is hard for kids. So initially when I do the tree chart, I'm going to give them the yellows and all they're looking for is text-based evidence. Is that making sense, guys? Easiest way to play the game, okay? They're going to stay here until 80% of my students can actually give me the text-based evidence to support the main idea or the criteria. And I'm going to show you some examples of these 2 as well. Making sense? Closed. I'm going to test them and see if they can do that. You guys, sometimes this is my assessment for them. I give them the criteria and let's see if they can even give me evidence to support that criteria, that main idea. So I even use this chart not only as a way to gather notes as they go, but also I'll say today your assessment is to create a tree chart and to give me as much evidence you know about these 3 main ideas. That's my test. They can do that? Wow. More than maybe the multiple choice question. Okay, the second way to play the game is called an open sort. Harder game to play. So an open sort is students have to give the yellows and the reds or the pinks. Okay, the reds. I'm using the traffic light kind of idea. Okay, yellows and reds. Much more difficult because now this is what students will have to do. They'll have to take all of their text-based evidence, sort them in like piles, and then name it. That's hard for kids. So open sort is harder. Don't start there. You give them the yellows, and then even when I go to open sort and I look at my A group who are my struggling readers and writers, sometimes I won't even go to an open sort for them because they're not ready to do that yet. But differentiate, how am I going to do that? So closed sort versus an open sort. So this is how we're doing this as well. This usually is our text-based evidence. So now you've got your setup. Turn and talk. Have you ever done an organizer like this? What does it look like? Go. Talk for just a minute while I transition.
Well, we use graphic organizers, but not necessarily.
Because that's essentially giving them some topics. They have to come up with
Right.
all the fluff.
3, 2, and 1. Here's a suggestion as we look at strategies, you guys. So now I don't just lecture. I'm always thinking of, okay, this is classifying information. I have to lecture in a way that helps them understand the material, but I have to make sure that I'm organizing it in a way for them so that they understand it. So oftentimes I'll stick with one main idea one day and we'll just gather evidence to support that one main idea, the one arm of a tree chart. And then the next day we focus on another arm, and then we focus on another arm. Oftentimes we do this, we throw out pupil on paper all of the things they need to know without helping them classify or sort that information in like piles. You guys, one sort is a potential body paragraph. One sort is a potential body paragraph. So do you see, we're actually helping them organize their thinking. We're helping guide them to the most important information. And then we're gonna have to teach them how to layer in just a lot of other things. But it's so powerful the way that I use this for my lecturing, that the way that kids are taking notes. They're not taking notes from me anymore. I refuse. Because who's good at note taking? Me. They're not. They're just copying what you're telling them. Is that helping them to own that strategy? The question I ask my seniors every year that I'm working with is, do you have a note-taking system? And usually their answer is no. Secondary, they just let us take notes however we want. How's that working for you? I always ask. Not helping me. So this is really good. Our job to keep continuing to teach, even at the secondary level, thinking, note-taking, and how to organize it so that they can write it, speak it as well. Okay, so here's your job. You're going to take this, you got little pink sticky notes. Grab those on yours, the little ones, not the big ones. Okay, so now on 3, you've got 3 little pink sticky notes this side. Guys, I like to even color code my sticky notes. Pink is evidence. So I use pink sticky notes or pink stars or pink dots, even at the secondary level. They love it when I bring it in a sticker, believe it or not. So like to use the pink. Okay, so on each one of your little pink sticky notes, you're going to answer this question. What is tripping students up? What is causing them to not be successful? I want 3 ideas, each one on its own pink sticky note. Okay, go on your own. What are 3 things that are tripping them up? Things that are not helping them be successful at school?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, right now I'm thinking about, I'm trying to get my subsidized kids to I've been writing them and filling the blank, no, so I'd like them to go,
That's a good step one.
I'd like to go beyond that. Like yesterday, I tried to have them look at which to answer who, what, where, why on this video. And I had kids that turned in three staple pages on a 10-minute video, and I had other kids who had Batuna travel Arabia.
And that's it.
So that's it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know, so when you're asking what's a barrier, so just put down notes on video, or do you want to?
Yeah, say difference of notes on video. That's tripping them up. Just, it doesn't have to be a complete sentence, but 3 ideas. What's tripping them up? Now think beyond what's not only what's happening in the classroom, but outside of the classroom too, you guys. Think of what's happening outside of school that's tripping them up. Okay, so my example is students are not coming to school on a regular basis. That all has to do with what? Attendance. There's my criteria right there. Attendance. See, my idea is connected to the criteria of attendance. Now, if you said attendance all on its own, that's really a yellow. Why are they not coming to school? That's a red. Okay, attendance, that's your yellow, your main idea, your criteria. What's causing them to not come to school? There's your evidence or your red. Okay, so think of 3 different things that are tripping your students up when it comes to school. Inside school, outside school. Okay. Share your 3 with your partner, please. And now you're going to do what I call a C and R strategy. If I don't say it slow enough, I think it's CN strategy. It's a C and R strategy. So when my kids are in a partnership or in a triad, they have to, when they're talking, do the C and R. So it's getting them to revise right away. C stands for confirm. We both agree. We both agree. That's a C. An R is revise. Oh my gosh, I didn't have that. I can add that to my chart. I didn't have it. Revise means add something or take something off your work. So C is confirm. R is revise. Revise your thinking. Okay. So as you're doing this with your partner, think of what's the same, confirm, or what's different, revise. Go. On your talk about your 3.
Okay.
So I have 10. Our population. I have another one. Yes, I did one more page. That's how I got.
Well, that's how I heard you say it. Do you know?
My last one was social. It might be. Well, actually, we're all doing it.
Oh, yeah, they don't.
I've had some kids
All right, so hopefully you've done a little bit of C&R, folks, and now it's time to take your sticky notes, your evidence, and now to sort it in like piles. I actually say tell them it's like folding clothes. When you, to be more efficient at folding clothes, when you take the clothes out of the dryer, you put your pants in one pile, you put your shirts in one pile, you put your socks in one pile. That's in order. That's to help you be more organized. So when you put them away, it's not all random. It's like it's the same thing with reading and writing. We've got to organize our thinking in what we call like piles. So I teach them how to do this on their own, but again, it's a lot of I do, we do to begin with. So I'm going to take my first sticky note that said, students are not coming to school, and I'm going to put it underneath the first yellow. Take one of yours and put it underneath the first yellow criteria, and take the other, put the other sticky notes to the side. I mean, I'm telling you, engagement just increases in your classroom by doing this. Once you've modeled this and done a lot of I do, we do, gradual release, they do it. It's I do, we do, you all do with a partner, you all do with a partner, you all do with a triad, you all do with a pod before now you do it to see if you can do it on your own. That's going to tell me whether you can do this on your own. So it's an I do, we do, you all do, you all do, you all do. And then assessment time, you do it individually. So I know that you got it, or you don't, then I have to repeat that, I have to review. Okay, so that's how I kind of think in my head. How many times do we show them how to do something? At the secondary level, not enough, I'm just telling you right now. Because I know your plate's this big and you're already thinking, how do I get this all covered? Well, if they don't get it, is it going to matter? If they don't understand step one, how are they going to do all the 7 steps that we want to teach them? We're going to be careful about going too fast. All right, so here's mine. Students are not coming to school. I need to think of my criteria. What's my criteria or my main ideas? Really, that really has to do with what? Attendance. I'm going to go ahead and label this first one attendance. Now look at yours, and if it's not attendance, what would this go to? What would you call your yellow for your first sticky note? And would you have your partner help you if you're kind of stuck? So do this together. Look at yours, and what would you name your first sticky note? What would you call it?
Writing process, concentration.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking there. Was that what you know?
It's more just like not being distracted.
I'm like, yeah, you didn't do much.
Prior training.
I love the conversations I'm already hearing about what the yellows might potentially be, you guys. Oh my goodness, you're already having conversations, higher level thinking to have kids think about their main idea. Okay, next one. Look up here. So if I'm asking them 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so now guys, you're gonna have them pick up a second sticky note. So I'm gonna have to teach them because they're gonna have lots of these, whether they're note cards or sticky notes, whatever you're using to get them to annotate text and pull that information into note taking. I'm going to say my next one is babysit. So this is what I have to say. Does this one go with this one, or is it a new one? So babysitting, I'm thinking some of my kids have a hard time coming to school because they have to babysit kids in the morning because parents are working, or I mean, babysitting is what I'm hearing a lot of our secondary kids. They have this responsibility to babysit their kids. So is that going to go in the attendance, or is it going to be another one? It causes them not to come to school, so that goes under attendance. You see that? Okay, now I have one more. Can't read grade level text. Does that go under attendance, or would that be another category on its own? Okay, so now what am I going to say about that? What would that yellow be? Readiness. Yeah, literacy skills. Their readiness here, they're not ready. So I'm going to put readiness here. So now do you see I'm already starting to help them organize their thinking, but you guys think about this. Potential introduction, potential body paragraph, potential body paragraph, potential body paragraph. Do you see what you're doing? The only thing that's missing is the conclusion. So on every thinking chart, I make my students think about their thinking. So in the bottom part of this chart, I tell them C equals. This is where after we complete this, I'm going to teach you how to draw a conclusion. Okay, I'm going to teach them how to draw a conclusion. I always used to call it conclusion, you guys. ELA teachers, I'm not sure, especially speaking to you because you're the ones that usually teach them how to write a conclusion. Usually conclusions are the weakest part of an essay for students. Agree or disagree? They don't know what to put, so they just ramble. In conclusion, I hope you like my paper about blank. I like my paper about blank. I hope you like my paper about blank. It's freaking amazing. I've actually seen that word a few times. Either freaking or friggin' is another one I've heard. So now we're talking about informal language. But you guys, do we explicitly teach them strategies on what to say in their conclusion? Normally, as an ELA teacher, we've been told over and over again that a conclusion is a restatement of the
Introduction.
poo on that. Don't like it. Pretty formulaic, pretty low level. I want them to go beyond that. So I ask them two questions, always. My two basic. Why is this important? So why are we doing this? Why is this topic? Why is this usually the topic? Why is this important? That's one way that I can get them to start without in conclusion, because I don't let my kids use that term in conclusion, as you can see. Those are just, they're pretty formulaic, get rid of them. You don't need that. Okay, why is this important? And then make a connection. Meaning text to self, text to text, something I've read, or text to world. Why is this important? For me, for what I've read, or for what's happening in our world today. See, that's the kind of conclusion I want when I'm scoring that. Those kids who can think beyond repeating, which is the same as restating, and give me a little bit more kind of higher level thinking, those conclusions are in my exemplary pile. That's what I want for kids to really focus on. It's not, teachers will say, well, they're not supposed to introduce anything else. Well, they're not. They're just reflecting on the topic. So that's going to be really important. Now, even though I'm not having them write, you guys, my exit strategy would be, okay, guys, why is this important that we did a tree chart on our school, or on history, or on science in some way, or on anything that we're teaching in ELA. So this is really important. This is my bottom green, you guys. So take your green and highlight that. This is going to help them start to be able to give me more in their conclusion than just repeating. Okay, so your job, sort your other two sticky notes and label your yellows. Go. Sort your other two sticky notes and label your yellows.
So that's why social studies studies everywhere. Just like we would.
Yeah, and I'd have to, in order to structure the public meeting, start with kind of summarize what the topics and then give me a sense about.
So.
Which is only one sentence.
So I've been telling my students.
Sorry, I'm nodding vigorously over here.
No, yes, it's like, even our.
My words are matching.
Yeah, it's just, you just have to get the use for strategies and that's what I'm sure not going to have to stretch. So give him like 3 questions, say it, summarize, why is this important to make a connection, kind of my 3 big ones. Yeah. Yeah, right. So more of a broad, kind of like a yellow with a green, right? You're not playing with the individual evidence, you're kind of taking all those evidence.
And us teachers,
That's our.
And then you have to model it too, right? All right, 3, 2, and 1. How did you guys like this? You guys had to think about the thinking that's happening. First of all, it wasn't silent in here. I don't like silence because I can't hear their thinking when they're silent. So this pairing up is really important for me so that I can listen to their thinking, whether they're staying on track or not. Also, think about the kids who don't like to talk. We got to get them to be speaking. And if we continue to have a silent classroom, they can opt out in the thinking and the learning. So to me, I'm making them accountable by talking to their partner and also by randomizing my way to call on them. So they know, anticipate I'm going to call on you. And if you're sleeping, I'm probably going to come over and ask you a question. Again, because we have all of that. You've got to get them to be talking to one another, to help one another, because I don't want someone to walk out with nothing on their paper. Do you have kids who still do that?
Oh, yeah.
Unacceptable. You before you leave, you got to get 3 ideas. Maybe we're asking them too much. We got to figure out the why of why they're not doing the work. But I want them to talk to one another, because if you don't have any idea, hopefully your partner does. Now, you guys, I also want you to think about how you're partnering your kids. 2 lows together, not a great idea, right? A high and a low together, not a great idea. Highs need to be together so they can move themselves. Middles and lows, I need to kind of do, middle and lows is what I kind of randomly do, but I now like a triad. I like to think of my classroom in my low A group, my B group, and my C group. That's how we differentiate. And oftentimes I'm going to ask my A group to maybe not do that higher level thinking initially because they can't. They're just trying to access and recall. Same article, my B kids are going to have the same reading, but I'm going to up the game a little bit and ask them a little bit more difficult questions. My high kids, guess what? Stay same topic, but higher level questions. When it comes to sharing, you guys, I do a triad. So my triad, you're my A. You okay with that today? You're my B. You're my middle of the road. Oh, you're my high flyer, right? You're my AP student.
She does. Good
Kind of
call.
a crazy woman.
So here's what I'm going to do. You all are reading the same thing. However, you're my low. You can't answer those questions that my high, and you are the middle of the road. You're still working on grade level benchmark. You, on the other hand, are high. When it comes to class discussion, this is the triad. You see how now everybody gets to participate and have something to share, but it's at their level. That's my favorite right now, triad. Instead of getting me talking and them not, I'm doing them in a triad and they're doing the talking. Next week, I'm going to go in and actually model this for a high school teacher who doesn't know how to differentiate. And that's exactly what I'm going to show her, how to do a triad in the classroom. So I think you need to try it out and see. I've done it before. It works. Kids are talking, but you guys right now might be hard. Think of how you're going to start your year out next year so that they know in my room, we talk. We talk. And then have some strategies for how you're going to set up your kids for next year. But try it out with one of your periods and see what happens. All right. So what I want you to do is, what did I just say? What was going to have you do?
While you're thinking, the highs and lows can't be together alone.
Yes.
Because they get frustrated.
Because the highs have to teach and the highs don't want
And the
to.
lows don't want to have to stretch that far. So
Right.
the middle person has to be there to be a buffer.
Right.
Sorry,
Right.
while you're thinking.
While you're thinking and doing that as well. Yeah. And again, the highs sometimes don't want to participate because they're bored. And I don't like that word bored, right? It's just hard. All right, so now I'm going to show you some examples. Take out another sticky note because I want you to write down some ideas, because you're going to now, when we get done, I want you to create one that you're going to actually use next week. Because if you don't, you won't.
Pink.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. This is just for ideas. Maybe a different color, because I use pink for my evidence all the time. So maybe choose a different color. Okay, you can also, guys, take a picture of some of these if you want to. Now, I try a random kind of sixth grade-ish all the way to high school, so you'll see a variety. But I want to show you some examples so you can kind of see how this looks like, how some of these examples are. So this is another way to just sort it out. Okay, they could be category, subcategory, and then the member underneath. I like topic, key ideas, and evidence. But here's just another way that you could have them model their tree chart. bulletin board. Now this is pretty low level, but what about a bulletin board when you're focusing on your unit and students are adding sticky notes to the tree chart? Pretty low level, but nonetheless, something you can do as a bulletin board when you're creating information about a specific main idea or criteria. Now here's what we call, guys, make a note. This is a T chart. What's it called?
Teacher.
A T chart is different than a tree chart, is different than 2-column notes. A T chart is where you only have 2 yellows or 2 categories or 2 main ideas. So a T chart is for classifying, you guys, but it's only 2 yellows, 2 main ideas, 2 steps, 2 criteria. Okay, still classifying. Here's another one on the real life use of a coordinate plane scale. So again, you guys, you can do this in all content areas as well. I like to show a few math because if I have a math teacher in the room, sometimes they can't visually see how to use some of these charts in math. Here's another one on math properties. Let's see again, here are my categories, and look underneath all of the potential evidence that goes with that category. And I can even break that down even more. Properties of equality. Again, you'll see some math ones in here, because usually math is one where I won't see the charts, but I have to give them some opportunities to go, well, how would this look in math? Types of muscles, here's more of them. Here's types of muscle cells. Okay, so we've got smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, skeletal muscles. So you see how you can take each criteria that you want to teach them and actually help them sort it by using a tree chart. You guys, instead of just random notes in their notebook, which by the way, is not very helpful when they go back to study, this is such a visual that's going to help them be much more successful. Note taking an academic language. Now I want them to not only give me some evidence, but then to sketch it. Now you guys remember, you guys, sketching is huge. Allow your secondary students to sketch their thinking. That's probably what they're going to remember over the words. So give them opportunities to actually sketch their thinking. Here's one on vocabulary. Negative ways to say said versus positive ways to say said. You guys, if our kids are still using low level, what I call wimpy words in their writing, that's not their fault. It's ours. Do we give them a bank of great academic, higher level academic vocabulary that you can pull from? On your checklist, does it say 3 academic vocabulary terms have to be included, and I want you to circle those in your writing, so I know you've used them. Do you see, if we don't ask them to do it, they won't, and they'll go back to their lower level vocabulary. I could even use that. This could grow as we go too as well. This could be an example of an assessment. Look at this one. Okay, we've been talking about measurement. We've been talking about customary units. What have you learned about ounces, pounds, and tons? You see, oh, I would love this and have them do this, then a 20 question, multiple choice question test, right? I need a variety of both, but this is a great one to do. Here's one for social studies. Here's one on sentence structure. The LA teachers, oh my gosh, give them different sentence structures and give them an example of each one so that now it's visible. And then I can say, hey guys, in your writing today, I want to see at least one simple, one compound, and one complex. You see, if I don't give them that explicit direction, they're going to go back to their low level short sentences. Okay, so that's another thing. Here's one on nutritional guidelines. Here's one on Athens, Greece. And again, this teacher actually did 3 different colors. I don't do that. I go green, yellow, red, but another way to attack your tree chart. And think about math. There's no tree chart here, but guess what? In order to answer this question, they have to have a T chart to do it. So to see how I can even move this right into math in so many different ways, pretty fun. Colors of symbolic representation. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we can do here. I'm just going to throw them questions at STEMs that I'm going to make sure they know. All right, so with your partner, I want you to come up with a couple of ideas that you're going to do next week with the tree chart. Go. Couple of ideas. Think about what you're teaching the next week. How can I apply a tree chart next
We're
week?
constructing a plan,
Three of us take testing. Module one. I'll let them know. That's pretty
Because I can like training on saying then we have to What do you know?
All right, let's move on. Let me get some more guys. Hopefully you all have an idea. Please share out one idea you're gonna have. So we're gonna work across the room. So this is what I love about this. When we truly have a class discussion, which by the way, we are right now because everybody's discussing, right? So always step one is everyone has a partner so that they can discuss, so that when we do have a class discussion, everybody can participate. So then I'll do a whip around with them afterwards to just throw some ideas across the room. So instead of doing that, I just want you to throw out, yell out, what's your idea for a tree chart for next week? Just so we can get some other ideas. So everybody, quickly, what idea?
So cemetery volume, first part, and then shapes, and the formulas.
Very good. Math example. Another one? Yes, in the back.
It's very simple, but in Spanish class, how do you say I love? There's multiple ways.
I love how in your discipline, you're already seeing how you can apply this to your discipline. Now think about it. Even if we start, if 3 of our teachers in our building do it, that's 3 more than before, right? But wouldn't it be cool if all of us were taught how to do a tree chart and we all applied it where it fit in our content? How powerful would that be? Change the way kids think, because they'd go, well, Mrs. Westerberg, why are we doing that in here? You know, no one else is doing it. Or they'll go, I'll always go, well, I know, but hopefully all of us are going to get to do that. So we teach kids in isolation rather than saying, this is a skill and a strategy that we can use everywhere. And giving them opportunities to practice. What's another idea? Yes.
Synonyms with my vocabulary words.
Woo, love it. Vocabulary. What's another?
constructing a plan.
Oh, I love that. You know, different ways of constructing a claim. Love that. What's another idea?
We're working on independent reading and like making a recommendation to somebody about the reading and to give evidence about why you actually recommended it.
Oh, now I love it. Now you're giving a dash and a dot, which now you're teaching them to layer their thinking, which is non-negotiable in their writing on Smarter Balance. If students don't layer their thinking, they're not going to meet standard, because kids will like to list it. They'll list everything that they know, but they don't ever layer their thinking. And so if they're just listing, that's going to drop their score right down to a 1 if it's a 2-point response. They have to layer. They have to state it and then give me something else. And who, what, when, where, why. Another layered elaboration for the thinking. You just did that. You said, we're going to do this, and then they're going to have to tell me this. That's the layering that you want your kids to be able to do. If you remember mine said attendance, and then I said dash, they are having a hard time coming to school. My dot is what? Many of them have to stay home and what? So I automatically started to layer my thinking, dash, dot, dash, dot, dash, dot, dash, dot, which is what you're going to want them to start thinking about. So nice idea. All right, so good job. Hopefully you all have a strategy for trying it next week. If you guys don't, you're going to end up losing it. This is about you learning it, teaching it, working out the bugs before you have students do it. So just opportunity to practice it. It's important. 25 hits, remember, for teachers, in order for it to be a part of your schema, 25 hits. Right, if in day one you do it for 4 periods or 5, got 5 hits in that already. Okay, let's start with learner objective.
I
Yeah,
have a
question.
that I think seems silly, but, so I'm just thinking about 39th graders and then the sticky notes. Do you have them like take them down or do you put them in a sleeve or something? Because this just seems like a lot of chaos.
Yeah, now the reason I like to tape them because oftentimes, see, my purpose is they're gonna have to come here and then sort it into their 2-column notes. I want them to be able to manipulate and take it off. So I don't let them glue it, but I do have them tape it because if you don't get that super sticky, then they'll fall off. So usually I will make them tape it because eventually you guys are gonna have to take those and move it into their 2-column notes. So they're not gonna write from here. They're just organizing, they're just gathering information in like piles, but now I'm gonna have to teach them how to now narrow that down. I don't want you to write 3 different paragraphs. I'm gonna have you just pick one today. Which one of those do you want to pick? And let's just do a 3-paragraph essay. The other thing for you guys you need to hear is we got to get away with the 5-paragraph essay. It's problematic. Number one, how many real life essays do you see that are 5 paragraphs in the world? Very little. We teachers are the only ones that teach that, right, by the way. SBAC calls for a multi-paragraph essay, meaning I'd rather have my kids give me 4 paragraphs that go deep than 5 that are surface, because those kids who have 4 but go deep in their elaborations will outscore and outperform those students who do a 5 and it's very listy. So you guys, it's okay to do a 3-paragraph essay to start with and then move to a 4 and stay at a 4 forever. Some of my kids, I have to tell them it's not about this number of 5. You do have to have an introduction, but your body paragraphs will fluctuate based on what you need to say about your topic. So don't get away from that 5. So we're gonna work on a multi-paragraph essay. You could have 7 yellows. I'm not gonna make them do 7 yellows. I'm gonna say of those 7 yellows, which 2 match your audience? That's really what you want. Which 2 are gonna match your audience? So when you look at mine, and we talk about attendance, and we talk about readiness, and we talk about all the things that I might have, I'm gonna say, you're gonna write to your parent, which of those 2 are gonna speak the most to your audience? It can't be just a random. So when I'm scoring, I'm looking for who's their audience. Is it evident? Do I know who they're talking to? Or is it pretty general and random? They're not gonna get as high a score of that. So that's gonna be really important as well, especially for ELA teachers who are having to teach this. Pick 2 yellow that match your audience. Huge for that as well. All right, learner objective. How many of you start your day with a learner objective in your periods? Okay, so what do you do with the learner objective when you post it? You turn and talk. What is your learner objective kind of routine?
Also, I have a learning intention and like they're not necessarily success criteria, but I have like this things and like how they and a lot of times I look so that way I'm not racing and driving. And that's where I probably where you're at work, like good at putting it up every right? And another thing is like the markers in how are we gonna do that to be successful?
All right, 3, 2, and 1. The learner objective has 2 purposes for me. Number 1 is to keep me accountable and on track. Number 2, it's so that students know their target. That's the reason for a learner objective. It's their learning. I want them to know what they're going to be learning. Oftentimes we put up an I can statement or a sentence, or we pull the standards, but you guys, that's kind of meaningless for kids because they don't really know what that is, and they know I'm putting it up there because it's a hoop that I have to go through. But how do I make it meaningful for students? Students need to know what we're going to be focusing on for the day. And I do it in a very simple T*-dot. So here's you want to take a little note of this. This is how I post my learner objective. You guys, and it's not as hard as you think. T is my topic or my concept. World War II. We're going to be working on cell division, whatever it is that you're working in your classroom. Okay. T is my topic, my concept. My star are my skills that they're gonna learn, okay? Not the content, the skills, like comparing, like summarizing, like analyzing, the skills that I want them to learn that week. So if I'm teaching them how to write a summary, the skill, the star is summarizing. That's the skill. You guys, where do I find the skill? It's the verb in your standards. Usually it's the verb in your standards. That is the skill that you're writing, thinking. It's all those verbs. The dash are the strategy that I'm going to teach them. So the dash is the strategy. If they're going to be, we're doing World War II and we're going to be summarizing, then the strategy is you're going to need to do 2 column notes and you're going to do the 4-step summary. So in my head, I already know what 2 strategies I have to teach them. This is the part we as content teachers are hung up on. The dot is the activity. Reading chapter 7, watching a video, reading an article. So the playing a game, having a discussion. So the activity is what usually our kids remember. If you ask your kids what's the skill and the strategy, they oftentimes cannot answer that. To me, skill and strategies trumps activities. And so I do it very easily. Usually this could stay up all week. The only thing that might change is my mental text. Today we're going to read chapter 1. Tomorrow we're going to read chapter 3. Wednesday we're going to watch a video. But we're still going to focus on those skills. So I want them to know what the target is. Now here's how I use it when we talk about bell-to-bell instruction, you guys. I always start my lesson with the learner objective, and I always end my lesson reviewing my learner objective. Did we do it? Yes or no? It takes 30 seconds. Tell your partner, what did you learn today? So that end of the lesson is really critical. We oftentimes say, line up and go. No, we got to close that learning loop. We got to stop and say, did we make our target? What did you learn today? What was most troublesome to you? What did you not get? So that bell-to-bell instruction is really important. So be thinking about your learner objective and how you make it interactive with your students. We talk about the why. It's the purpose. Oftentimes as teachers, we get to the how and the what, and we ignore the why. So this is why we want to make sure our kids know what that learning standard is. And hopefully we know it. There's also some research to the kinds of things that we want to do in terms of moving the dial. So I like to use John Hattie's work. If you guys Google his visible learning, he's got this great graph that tells you what are the high leverage strategies you should be using in your building. So the ones for you are over here. 0.4 is where you want to be. Anything below 0.4 is not as helpful to kids. You want to choose things that are going to give you that hinge point of 0.4 and above. So I pulled a few things specifically for you guys to be thinking about. Number 1, highest points is collective teacher efficacy, 1.57. What does that mean? Turn to talk, collective teacher efficacy. What does that mean? It scored the highest in John Hattie's research work.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot.
Right.
All the partnership. So I have- and then have one next year.
So now it's trying to even if they're not.
Okay, 3, 2, and 1. The most critical when we talk about, you guys, 0.4 means a year's growth. So just to give you kind of a place to kind of think about this, a 0.4 means 1 year's growth. So anything over a 0.4 is more than 1 year's growth. So we should be looking at that and going, okay, what are the 5 that we want to concentrate in our building that are higher than a 0.4 that's going to help us move that dial? Collective teacher efficacy is 1.57. Oh my heavens, when we all play the same game talk the same language, have the high expectations. Whew, that's good for kids. And we tend to isolate it. We kind of close our door and we do what we do and we don't necessarily talk as a whole. Really important. Note taking, you guys, 0.50. Our kids need a note taking system. And I hear too many times from high school kiddos, they have not been taught a note taking system. Yeah.
I have a question about those students that really struggle to take notes.
Yes. Okay, so now that goes back to differentiating, and now I have to think about how I take them notes. Sometimes for my struggling, and I know this is extra work, you guys, but if I have to differentiate, my note taking for my A group is going to be fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I give them most of it and they fill in the keyword.
Or highlight it.
Or I highlight, yes, absolutely. You have to give them more than your B and your C group because they can't do it yet. So oftentimes I give my A kiddos a framed sentence, a framed paragraph, a framed tree chart that already has the yellows because B and C doesn't need that, but my A group does. So sometimes, you have to differentiate that way, but that's how I get my note takers who can't do it. I write in most of the sentence. There's a blank for them to write in a keyword. Perfect. And usually that keyword can be found in their annotating. So that's the other thing. If you guys aren't annotating, you're going to have a hard time with note taking. So I'm going to show you how to annotate as well. Yes.
And I think we're on the next slide.
Yes.
But that's one of the things that our middle schoolers are, they really struggle with regulating themselves and then to take notes and then they have this ability. Highlighting is becoming a strategy that we're trying to use more and more because even sometimes that stop and write, even if it's just one word,
It's difficult.
too much of a distraction.
And then you throw a highlight out and that's another distraction. Because I want you to think about, you guys are listening out of the mouth of someone who's got special ed kids. I want you to think about this. This isn't just for our special ed kids. Think about as the text gets harder, it gets harder for your B and your C kids, right? So I'm not changing the strategy for my high flyers, but I'm going to up the Lexile of their text. So they're going to still struggle because the level of what they're reading becomes higher. I'm not going to let them just read where they can. I'm going to continue to up the text, the Lexile for them. They're still working on note taking, but their Lexile changes. So I'm just saying your kids struggle, but when you give your C group kids a higher level text, they're going to struggle just as if the special ed kids are going to struggle at the A level. Does that make sense, you guys? We teach to the middle. We teach a one size fits all, and you guys got to quit doing that because we don't have one size in our classroom. We've got to teach to, and it's hard, I know. We've got to try to start doing something different with differentiating. Yeah.
You guys all know about newsella.com. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, there are a couple of news outlet, and you have my other favorite is readworks.org because I can put in the title and then change the Lexile level. So readworks.org is a great place to go. I also like readworks.org because they will give you paired text too as well. So that's just two resources: Newsela, Newsela.
The reason it's so nice for Newsella is that it's all the same picture.
Yeah.
Just the Lexile changes, so and nobody can really tell who has the harder text.
Right. Okay, let's go on to the others. These are kind of my top 6. Okay, so if you want to take a note to go back, these would be good 6 goals for your building. First, collective teacher efficacy, growth mindset. We all have to be playing the same game. We need to have, if you need an article on collective teacher efficacy, I've got it for you. You need to be reading as a collective group of educators to determine what are we doing to help students. Note taking. Do we all have a note taking system to give them? Now, do kids need 20 different ways to take notes, or can we give them 5 different ways to take notes? Right? Choice is good, but this is too much for kids, and then they quit. What about prior ability? Here's the key. When prior ability is a 0.94, almost 2 years of growth, you guys. Prior ability means what do they come as freshmen? What do they come to their sophomore year knowing what to do? So prior ability, what am I asking them to do at 9th grade that I still want them to do at 10th grade? And then as a junior and as a senior. And what about below you? Because oftentimes you don't have elementary on board. That's a big problem for you all guys, because then they come and you have to start over.
So that really correlates with the collective efficacy and some vertical alignment.
Yeah, what do we want our 9th graders to do and what I would expect it's against that bridging of 8th to 9th, 9th to 10th, and so forth. Transfer of strategy is another big one, you guys. 0.86. That means that my students can transfer a strategy to another content. They don't usually do that right now. They just go to mine, put it away, go to yours, put it away, go to yours, put it away. Okay, so we want to make sure that they can take that idea pre-chart and move it everywhere, because that's more practice. Concept mapping is thinking charts, by the way, you guys.
Yeah.
So a tree chart is a concept map. And then elaboration organizations to teach our kids to layer their thinking. Give me a detail and then who, what, when, where, why. Give me a detail, add statistics, add a definition, add a quote. So again, even my language changes with my struggling readers, who, what, when, where, why, to my regular ed and my higher, where I now start to name them. That's statistics and data. That's a definition. That's we use another component, you quoted an author. There's a whole list of elaborations that we want them to do. You guys, these would be big ones to go back and say, how are we in our building with these? Turn and talk. Where would you say your strengths and your weaknesses are in your building when it comes to those top 6? What do you think? Turn and talk. What do you think? What are your strengths in your building? What are maybe some areas that you need to focus on?
I'm hoping to transfer strategies. Is one that I'm just one.
I think we're terrible at selective teacher applications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
taking.
I'm singularly terrible.
Well, and like note taking, everything's on Google Classroom. Sadly, my biggest verbiage for them is like you have to review it. And I think what would be awesome is to print those out for our study students and have them highlight on those notes.
We do note taking in
Yeah, absolutely.
our class, and then with that 10th grade class, when they annotate, so how would I'm thinking about the differentiation, but right now what they're doing is they have a highlighting rubric and they highlight the figures in language.
Yeah.
Then they have to make notes in the margin.
Yep.
And some can write one word,
Yeah.
some can write a phrase, and some can write complete sentences. I guess what I have to do is go to A, B, and C and make sure that they're doing that, but make sure that my higher level 2 are not just writing the one word.
Yeah,
They're
one
writing,
word, yeah.
and then they're thinking more critically.
Yeah. Or Cassidy.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of right now.
And then sadly, this word is one word.
He is one word. Yeah, he's my one word guy. And Josh, he's writing terrible, but he's such a deep thinker that
He should be a single, he's probably C or B plus.
his
Probably
conventions
could
are
be a
terrible,
C,
but
To me, I think we just know so little about what goes on. This area of
it's just really
dominant
hard.
strategies that people have. So we can see, okay, these are some of the areas that they're all working on. Leaning more into that. I mean, I think that that's probably on the class or.
Well,
You know what I mean?
And so out of our ignorance, we don't know.
and certain hallways, the classrooms.
Ready, folks, 3, 2, and 1. Get a line piece of paper, please.
Always
I'm
on
gonna
that
have
same
you
wall,
take
so
some
when
notes
it's
for me,
on
but I'm gonna give you another strategy other than the tree chart for
It's
taking
there.
notes. This is called an informal outline. The line piece of paper. It's another way to teach kids how to take notes. My favorite for classifying is either 2-column notes or an informal outline. Those are my 2 choices. And I teach both, and then I let my students choose the one that works best for them. 2-column notes is left to right. Informal outline is down the page. So they're the same organizational framework in your head, but it's just how they put it on paper that is a little bit different. So an informal outline is where they're classifying information, but they're going down the page. So the colors don't change, the symbols don't change. It's just organized, not from left to right, but down the page. So I have my title. Informal outline is my strategy for the skill of classifying. Here's my topic: active reading, listening lesson. I'm going to go through what I feel needs to be a part of every lesson that you do if you're going to have them active read or active listen to something. And this is where we're building stamina, not only reading stamina, but writing stamina. Let's not, as teachers, because we know have this much to do, forget what we need to lead our kids through when they're reading, because their end goal, you guys, is to write about their reading. So we don't want to shortchange the beginning pieces in order to get to the writing. I would rather have a rough draft and score a rough draft than score finals. And I'd rather score all the thinking they have to do before the rough draft and give them more points for that, because their thinking is going to be what's most important initially before I teach them how to actually write it. And sometimes we go right to the final, which way to think about that. All right, so would you write on your paper, active reading, listening lesson? There's my grade, there's my topic. Today, Westerberg, today, kind of a win. Today, Westerberg showed us some specific steps on how to teach an active reading, writing lesson. Oh, there's my topic sentence right there. Starting with the where, okay? Okay, so what's one thing that we need to do? So now you're gonna star. That's usually what comes next. There's my yellow. That's my main idea. And then underneath it is where I'm going to dash and potentially dot. Okay, that's where the layering happens. We're going to dash as our next one. So now they're just going down the page. T star dash dot dash dot dash dot star dash dot dash dot. I mean, I'm going to repeat that and say that a lot to my kids so they understand organization. Okay, so this is what we want. We want star dash dot as much as we can, and then we skip a line if we're going to start another dash. And that's how we're going to set this up. And I'm going to cover this in for a minute because I want to go through and show you this slide. Give me a minute. Okay, so and I'm going to have you reflect on this because I think I don't want to go too far in terms of strategies. So you guys can see this. Hold on here. This is what I try to do every time I give them something new. So here's my lesson plan. Step number 1, vocabulary. There's my first star. The right star, vocabulary. Your first star on your paper is vocabulary. And put a dash and a dot underneath it. Okay, put a dash and a dot underneath it. So each one of these, the first one is a star, and I don't have a dash or dot right now. Your next star is read, time, and text. Okay, so would you write second star, read, time, and text? How are you getting your kids to read the text you have in front of them? Okay, now time and text means, if I can, 3 reads. 3 reads. Now, you guys, if you have a chapter that has 27 pages, it's not 3 reads of pages 1 to 27. It's 3 reads of a critical part in the 27 pages. Does that make sense? I'm not having them read the whole thing 3 times, but I'm saying the first time you probably need to read the whole thing. I'm going to help you go through that. But the second 2 reads are teaching them how to reread, how to focus on fluency, how at even the secondary level we have to work on fluency, and also to read it again so they can remember. It's kind of like giving them that place to hold their thinking. We don't do that enough. Okay, the next star is reread. So every star is followed by a dash and a dot. Okay, every star is followed by a dash and a dot. Okay, so again, this first one would be, let me just go back so you can see this again. If I can model this correctly, I'll come back here to my. So remember, this is what yours should look like. See if yours looks like mine. The first one was what?
Vocabulary.
Okay, so my dash is, I'm going to have a variety of strategies that I'm teaching them. So I'm going to put variety strategies. I get rid of the unimportant words. And then I'm going to say, okay, dot, what is a strategy that I use for vocabulary? So you guys write down one of the strategies you use for vocabulary on the dot. One strategy you use for vocabulary. I use the Freyer model. That's one strategy I use. Another strategy I use is the fold apart organizer. So you're just listing some strategies. Okay, then I had the second step. This is like step number 1. I'm going to pull out the vocabulary that I want them to know, right? The next step was what?
Time and text.
Read, time and text. How many times, you guys?
3.
Why? There's my dot. Why? What I want them to read 3 times.
For retention.
Retention, fluency, yeah. Retention would be great. Is another reason why. Fluency would be another reason I would want them, especially for my struggling readers, to get them to be reading, to be a fluent reader. So do you see, I'm modeling them when they're taking notes, how to organize their thinking and also how to layer. Just look at my colors, dash, significant detail followed by supporting. Okay, read, time and text, significant detail followed by supporting. So that's how you're doing that, okay, as we go through. All right, let me got that and give you some of these others. Let's see, from current. Okay, okay, gonna pull up the vocabulary words. What words? I usually kind of have a list of words. Those go on my word wall, you guys, by the way. Why? Because those are the ones that they're gonna get tested on, and those are the ones that I want them to use in their writing. Again, you guys, if they're not using high level words, how are we helping them with that? They're gonna read time and text 3 times, 3 parts. They're going to reread and do a text feature walk. So you guys, your third star is reread. Every time they read, my students have to, first of all, look at all of the text features on the page. What are text features? My students, I just asked them not too long ago, and not one student could tell me what a text feature was. The teachers in the back of the room, Jason, you remember this? Teachers in the back of the room were like, what? I know. They were embarrassed, I think, a little bit, because not one student in their classroom could tell me what a text feature is. Now, as soon as I said title, illustration, they knew, but they didn't know the word text feature. You guys have to say text features are this, name them so that they know, because on Smarter Balance, it'll actually say text feature. And I had students who will go, I don't know what they're asking me to do on that one. So just make sure you're teaching them and connecting text feature to what they are. So I always have them do what I call a text feature walk. Label everything that you see on that page. What do you see? An illustration, a diagram, a text box, paragraphs, bolded words, colored words, different size of font. Anything on the page other than the words is considered a text feature. You guys, I want them to read those because those are going to be questions they're going to be asked about. Now here's on Smarter Balance, just FYI, guys. On the Smarter Balance, they're not going to be asked to name a text feature. That's too low level. Let's recall. The expectation is that they already know. They're going to be asked a higher level question like this. How did the author in source 1 and 2 use the text features in order to blank? You see, now they have to use the text features to answer a question. They don't have to name them. That's too low level. So that's why we have to work on text features. They have to, next star, you guys, on your paper, annotate. Next star, how are you teaching them to annotate? They can't just read and write. They have to read and annotate what they're reading. Again, those are the lampposts, a place to hold their thinking. Otherwise, they're going to write based on what they remember. And that doesn't always work well for our kids. The next thing is next star, note taking. What note taking system are you going to teach them? So dash and dot. What's the thinking chart and what's the skill? So note taking, what kind of note taking goes with the kind of learning I want them to do? Now, here's where we would get at some point. You need to come back to me, you guys. Because what we need our kids to be able to do is to say this. They've read the question. I need to take notes. I want 2 column notes because this question is asking me to classify my information. This question is asking me, what were the reasons for this? That's a multiple flow. That's cause and effect. You see, you want kids to identify the question, know the skill that's being asked of them, and to determine the note-taking strategy that goes with it. Can they do that now? No, we tell them, but they don't remember. So we've got to get them to know what kind of note-taking the note-taking system they're doing. And then the last star, you guys, is they have to write. Now, you guys, it doesn't have to be an essay. It could be a sentence at the end of the day. It could be journaling at the end of the day. It could be a paragraph at the end of the week. So again, opportunities for them to write every single day. 60-40 rule, 40 minutes of writing across the day, not just in ELA. All right, so turn and talk. When you look at these steps of a lesson, where are your strengths? Where are your ready to benefit areas? Turn and talk real quick when you look at your lesson. What are you doing on a regular basis? What do you need to start doing on a regular basis?
You got your notes.
Yeah.
The one thing that we know is
Way it's designed is we have to text you.
So.
Wednesday, start looking what is a paragraph? All 4 days, reading the text, same text, all week. On Tuesday, well, on Monday, it was doing the text. Then annotating right after. And that's where you're going to highlight that heading and then in the margin, right?
Yeah. And then take.
Somebody asked what we're going to do. What types of questions? List, state, why, when does this happen?
Okay, 3, 2, and 1. Here's an example, you guys. I'm going to start with vocabulary, but I wanted to show you this before we move to a vocabulary strategy. This is an example of how I teach my kids to annotate, but it depends on the skill. So if they're going to be looking for, if it's argumentative thinking, then their strategy to annotate is going to change. If it's just recall, getting information, I'm going to do a strategy called circle one, underline a few. If it's to look for different sides of the claim, I'm going to teach them a different way to annotate. If it's cause and effect, I'm going to teach them a different way to annotate. So every skill kind of has its own own special strategy when they're annotating the text. And annotating means stopping and having a conversation with the author as you go. Don't wait until the end. That's what annotating is all about. Stopping and having a conversation with the author as you go. It's a kind of a lamppost for your thinking. It's a place to hold your thinking. Now, you guys, step 1, give them a hard copy to practice on. Don't just, I mean, again, sometimes we spend so much time on having them read on the computer technology. Don't start there. Give them a hard copy. And if you have a book and they can't write in it, don't start there. You got to get them there. But then after they know how to do it on paper, then you teach them how to put their notes on sticky notes. So now they're reading, and instead of waiting to the end, they still have to, by paragraph, have a sticky note where they're transferring their learning, what they've read, onto a sticky note. Get them to do that next, because that's what they're going to have to do on the Smarter Balance. They can't annotate, even though they have access to a highlighter. I make them do sticky notes, and as they're reading paragraph by paragraph, they have to take a note. That's what I'm looking for, text-based evidence. Now, you guys, if they just read and start writing, what are the chances they're going to pull the elaborations they need to? They're not. They're going to start bringing in what they know that has nothing to do with anything that any of the authors said in their sources. So again, this is a whole nother day of practice. We just wanted you to know you need to teach them how to annotate and pull information from the text, okay? One of the things that then after you've done that is now you've got to do your thinking charts, which is in your package. You've got an example of all the charts. We're not going to get to all of them, but you'll see a packet of all the charts that I feel are critical, that are connected to standards, that are part of the process of reading and writing that you need to teach your students. I have a chart, a poster of this in my classroom. Kids have a picture of each one in their binder, so they have an example of how it's color-coded and its purpose. I also, in your packet, have a list of just definitions of what they are. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to teach you a new strategy. Would you go to page 12 in your packet, please? Page 12, we teach you vocabulary. We're kind of going through the process of our lesson. Am I going too fast, you guys?
No.
Oh, good.
I was saying,
That
I
was
love that
it.
you're out of air at the end of your sentence. You're like, I'm gonna get every one of these words out.
And then-
Every one I planned and yeah. I like that.
Yeah, because I have so much and I'm gonna lose you here in just a few minutes. So that's why I'm trying to get everything in. All right, so I want to do a brace chart. Guys, I could start with one sheet that just has one brace chart. That might be the way that I teach it, I model it. So really it depends on, let me blow this out. Initially, if I'm modeling, it might just be one. Now, eventually I could give them a sheet that has 4 different ones with 4 different words. Or I could do, these could be note cards that they have. So all the words that they have could be on what I call a chicken ring that are color coded. So chapter 1 would have an orange chicken ring. Unit 2 would have purple chicken rings. So I go to the feed store and get those plastic chicken rings. They're little tiny ones, they're cheap and they're color coded. Then I can give them 10 note cards with the orange chicken ring, and they keep those together. And that becomes their vocabulary assessment. So I even do that. The metal rings are way too expensive. So I go to the feed store and get chicken rings, which, by the way, think about that. I wonder how they use them. And they must sort their chickens by,
I put them on my chicken legs by how old they are,
see,
that I can tell when they need to be moved on.
there you go. See, but I buy them because you can go get a whole bag of red, orange, yellow, and I like to hand those out.
Bring me some red legs.
Cocoa band.
See, you know them. Total text itself right there.
Text to world.
Right, okay. So the brace chart, you guys, this is called a brace chart. What's this called?
Brace chart.
And the skill is hold apart. What's the skill?
Hold apart.
What's the skill, the strategy?
Brace chart.
Oh, see, you got to remember, this is exactly the way we do this with kids. What's the strategy?
Brace chart.
What's the skill?
Hold apart.
What's the skill?
Hold apart.
What's the strategy?
Brace chart.
See, I do that all the time with kids, because if I just do it once, they're not gonna remember. Okay, so this is where you're going whole, 2 parts. And then I can even break it down if I need to a second time. Now, I like to use this with vocabulary. I'm gonna show you other ways that you can use this, but I'm going to definitely start out by using it with vocabulary. I'm really big right now on morphemes or morphology. For my second, well, for all students, but specifically for secondary, I'm really wanting to focus on morphology or morphemes, parts of words. Now, I like the Freyer model, but it's really hard, and there's a lot to a Freyer model, and I'm finding that kids get really tired of the Freyer model, so I got to change up my vocabulary strategy, but I also got to change my skill. I really want them to work on morphemes, parts of words. So one way that I can take this brace chart, I could go, what's the word today? Disagreement. What's the word, everyone?
Disagree.
Say that again.
Disagree.
Nice job. Say it one more time.
Disagree.
You see, do we verbally ask our kids to say the word? Do you ask them to stand up when they're speaking? Woo, that's a good one. My kids have to stand up and speak, and not to me, to the group. And I make them repeat and verbally say the word so that they're saying it correctly as well.
How do you get them to do that?
It's called practice and start at the beginning of the year. And
Just to stand and speak.
it's just part of what I do in my classroom.
And if they say no?
They don't.
Okay.
They don't. They don't have a choice in my room. I mean, but I got to teach it and I got to model it before we do it. But that's just a requirement in my room. I know that's hard because there are students who don't and won't, and will say no. But boy, I'll have a conversation with that student and tell them.
Because I've got kids that'll cop out and go, I've got social anxiety. I can't do that.
They're so fragile.
Okay, so when I have kids that say that, if it's not on the 504, not an accommodation to get big.
Oh,
And you just spoke out in public by saying you're diagnosing, so you're capable of speaking.
And remind them.
oh, I love you guys are a lot of, oh my goodness, you're all my like. Mommy, I love it.
You can get your big
I'm
bag.
This might be like unpopular,
Way
but I
to
do,
go,
if you can't do it in front of people, you can do it before after school, but you have to bring 6 people. You can choose the people, but you have to bring 6, not 2, not just your sister. Like, you've got to bring a squad, and it can be your squad, and that's fine. But honestly, I'd rather make a fool of myself in front of the people who aren't gonna roast me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
With my friends, if I goof up my
Right.
presentation.
You guys, now, here's the thing too. I also know who I'm gonna call on to stand, and I also know that I'm gonna ask those questions to those kids who can answer it and can do it, number one. So I'm not gonna hold, it's not a gotcha kind of thing. I already know you're my A student, so I'm gonna make sure that I speak to you, or I'm gonna give you a question that you can answer, but you gotta get them to stand up and talk. Otherwise, they're gonna put that hoodie on, go to sleep. They're not gonna look at you because they don't want you to call on them. They know how to play the game of school, you guys. Don't let them opt out. That's not an option in my room. Here's what would be really helpful, you guys. If you're having kids and say, they're telling you no, and I had a student, a middle school student told me that I was full of crap. Well, I'm telling you, that did not sit well with me, and I didn't address it at the time because I was just coming in to do a model lesson. He didn't really know me, but he still, the teacher took him out in the room. But by golly, she said, he's gonna have to go to the principal. I said, no, I want to talk to him first. So I went out and talked to him in the hallway, and I said, can you tell me why you were disrespectful to me? And he said, I don't know. And I said, that's not going to cut it for me. You're smart. I know you know why you did it. So I'm going to sit here if it takes all day in order for you to tell me why you were disrespectful to me. He answered. And then I said, well, how did it impact me as the guest teacher? I don't know. What do you think I said? Not buying it. I'll sit here until you can tell me why, because I think you know why. He was able to tell me why. I said, how did it impact the students? I don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to sit here until you can, because I know you're smart. Was I being kind? Yes, I know you're smart. I know you know. I'm not leaving until you can answer and articulate to me why you did what you did. I said, now what do you need to do? I need to apologize. Okay, I'll wait. I'm sorry. Oh, what? I'm sorry for what? So do you see, we have to model that. We have to expect them. We have to have these strong routines in our room, but would it be so much easier, you guys, if all of us did it? Because if I'm the only one doing it, then I'm the mean, mad, bad teacher. We all need to have this expectation that how we can ask our kids to be respectful, kind adults, but then we have to find some ways to layer that and help them be successful. No, it's not an option for me. I'll find another way for you to do that, but you are going to share. Just like you with a small group or with your partner. You're not opting out in the learning. Start at the beginning of the year when you set up your expectations guide, and then start expecting it. Because right now might be too late. But try it with the period and see what happens. Okay. All right. Disagreement's our word. Saying it. I like my kids to say it 3 times. Make a note. Say 3 times out loud. That's something that we don't do at the secondary level enough. So say that word 3 times. Let them say it 3 times. Okay. So morphemes are part, prefix, root word, base word, suffix. So let's see if we can do that. We've got a prefix. That's dis. Our root word is agree. And our suffix is meant. Okay, now I could right away now break this down. So I could say, what is this? Oh, it's a what? It's a prefix. So I could easily just say, let's break that down one more time and tell me what that is. That's a prefix. Oh, this is a what? This is a root word. So sometimes I'll even, because I want to do something different over here, I might say, oh, let's label this right here as a prefix. This right here is your root word, your base word, your root word. And then this is your what? For my language teacher in the back, this will be interesting for you to do this because yours is the subject verb agreement is all that's so different, but you'll want to be creative in how you do this with your, it would work the same. Okay, good. Okay, so then agree, what is it? So this is what I really would want them to do. I wouldn't want them to do this because I want them this, but for my A kids, that's where I'm going to start. Just tell me what that is. A kids, prefix, good job. But my B and C, I want them to go beyond. What is it meaning? So now I want them to break it down by meaning. So now they can see that word, meaning. And I said, oh, this means not or opposite. Agreed. To have the same opinion. You see, now I'm going to teach them what does that part mean to have the same opinion. And what does meant mean? Meant means state or quality. Okay, so what's your teaching of morphemes and parts of words? You guys, just telling you, research is really stating that our secondary students really need a lot of work on morphemes, or what we call morphology. I would even say, what are some other related words for that? What are some other words that have disagreement? What are the words that come to mind? Throw them out.
Disagree.
Disagree. Any others? Disagreeable. See, now I want them to think over here. I could even come down here and say, what are some other related words? What I call related words or related
color code this as well.
What?
Do you color code?
Oh, yes, yes, look. Oh, there's my whole. To the first part. To the definition. So yes, my color coding pretty much stays the same as we go. Okay, let's do another one. That's one example. So every word, if I could break it down, I do that. Okay, here's another example. Still working on morphemes and parts of words. I got, I could do even too. So come down here to this one. Let's talk about the word envious. So now we have to know some definite spelling rules. So envious, we've got the main word is what? Now I'm working on number of morphemes. Because now I want to know what are the number of morphemes here that I want them to focus on. Okay, so we've got two, right? We've got two parts. We have envy, right? Now they need to know that envy has a Y, not an I. Do you see that? Envy, what does envy mean? Discontentment. And then OUS is my other part that I have to get rid. I think about this I here, you guys. There's a rule about that. So I've got envy, and then I've got OUS, and OUS means full of. Now I could say down here something a teacher did, and that's all I would do is only have two parts, right? Two morphemes. So depending on how many parts or how many morphemes they have, how many yellow they have, and then said, could we make the Bible as a way and we have to change the Y to a Y to a I, maybe I would do that there, but. We add OUS. Okay, that's another example. Okay, let's come over here to the third one. Here's another one that might work for you is I might say, I'm going to be working now on this one on synonyms. Okay, so this is a synonym one. You can even do antonyms too, by the way, but I'm going to do synonyms. So I'm going to think of all the lower level words that they like to write, like awesome, right? And here I want them to give me 3 words that replace awesome, like, oh, impressive. With your partner, come up with 2 words that you could use that are synonyms of the word awesome. Go. What are 2 other words?
Yeah, we're from the same generation. Radical. Over.
Okay, so awesome.
Conclusion down here, I would have to as well. On this one, I would have to write a equal sentence using a word. So this that now is being and here's where I'm going to use this word higher in a sentence. Really bad. No, change it. I really bad. I'm going to show you how you move this into content. So T equals content down here on this last bottom one. Oh, now I can say, okay, science, social studies. What can I break down content? This is going to be pretty lower level because I like to show them in phase of instruction. You guys, phase 1, I'm teaching the strategy. I don't care about the content in phase 1. In phase 2, I'm going to I'm going to continue to practice this strategy with text that's high interest, but the reading is low level. Phase 3 is content. You guys, we always go to what phase? 3. No wonder they don't use the strategy. We don't break it down enough for them. And then we give them that sea of words that they can't read. That's another problem. We got to break it down for them. So here's an easy one. We're looking at the body. There's my whole, right? Now we're talking of parts of a body, and I'm going to make you actually create one that you can do right with your kids this next week too. Oh, so now I'm going to show you how to break down the content. Oh, well, we know we have a head. We know we have a torso or body, right? And we have our extremities or legs or whatever you want to, however you want to do it. Pretty low level, just to get it, you guys. Okay, so those are the parts, full to part to part, breaking it down. And then look what you guys can do. You can go, what are the parts in the head? What are the parts in the torso? What are the specific parts of your extremities? You see how you're doing that, you guys? Now you're breaking it down as you go. I love this one. There's something about this that kids love over the Frayer model, because the Frayer model is really a lot. So a lot of boxes, a lot of higher thinking. This is pretty good. Now, what they're saying about vocabulary is no more than 5 to 10 a week if you want them to use it in their oral and written language. Now, do I speak 50 words a week? Yes, but I only make them go deep with 5 to 10 if you want them to use it in their oral and written language. Okay, so turn and talk. What do you like about this strategy? And then when you're done, you're going to turn it over and make one that's going to be specific to your content this next week. Go.
What's your content? Which class, right?
Yeah. More practice.
Wow.
It's killing.
Yeah. So you got to have all your stuff ready.
Yeah, I gotta have everything ready to go. So then I'm always working out where I am. So. Yeah, I'm teaching an anthropology class next week. I'm going to be teaching a repression class. To give next class, so I might.
Oh, cool.
That's how I would use it. Or teaching.
As an elective?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and world geography.
That's quite a bit. No content like probably got kids that like really
And so what I noticed is that kind of transferring into more of the elective stuff, I have a lot less classroom management issues. There's a little bit more in and out at the beginning of the trimester because students kind of, well, what elective do I feel like doing? You know, but once they're locked in, there are students that ostensibly chose to be there, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Roberts has got kind of all the main
Hey guys, up here,
11th
hopefully you
graders.
guys, I
For
want to do
US,
one more.
I just take the honors.
Right?
Okay.
I know
At
I
least
didn't
that's what I
have
did
time
this
to
year.
plan, but I know we only have about 20 minutes, and I want to give you one more chart pretty quickly, but I want that I think you could use this spring. But before I do, I want to just show you some other examples of what you could do with what we call a grace chart, okay? So again, it's a breaking down. This is very basic. So think of your, how do I teach it to begin with? Something pretty easy. Even sketching it is something you could do. But then again, I'm just going to show you just some examples of what you could do to begin with. What is an apple? What are the parts of an apple? And then break that down even more. Here's one on a instrument. So these work with any content. I'm just telling you, if you have teachers that say that's not going to work for me, I can guarantee I can find a place in their curriculum that they could break down. Here's one on, a stage. And think about it, even in our related arts classes, we can do that. Here's a more, a little bit better body. So you can see how much it goes all the way down. There's quite a bit more. That's a little bit fuzzy. Here's the one for math, you guys, if you're a math teacher. See how we're breaking that down? Oh, what about giving them a problem and then telling me what are the steps that they have to do? So here's your word problem. What are the questions that you have to answer? or how are you going to answer that? So again, you can change this up in a variety of different ways. And then and then the corners are how do you know, or what do you need to do next, that kind of thing. Here's in one on a computer. The Americas, social studies. Here's another one. See how we break that down for kids? Pretty impressive. They love it. They actually really like this one. Oh, what about history? Look at this one. Math skills. Oh, can you mix the correct formula? Oh gosh, time. You guys analog. How many of you guys teach your kids analog and how to read an analog phone? You guys, they don't know how to read they don't know how to read an analog. Kids don't. I have to tell you, my husband works for Boeing. I mean, he goes in and works with the parts of Boeing, and again, it was just an entry-level job that was very low level, but my husband went over there, talked to that department at Boeing specifically, and he was sharing that I was a teacher and all that, and he said, oh my gosh, I interviewed 20 young folks for a job that they had posted. And he said, one of my questions is to read an analog. And he said, only one of the 20 people who came into his interview could read an analog clock. They couldn't read the clock. They didn't know what it was. So you guys, we got to get rid of just all the digital times that we have. We need to go back to teach them how to read an analog. I was just amazed and floored by that. Okay, here's another one of math. Look at this one. All the different sides of math. Breaking down. Some of them, these are more, I've done more. Okay, ready? Awesome. Turn top. What do you like best about this strategy? Then we're moving to the next one. Go. What do you like next?
Yeah, I mean, this year, yeah, like the learning curve was less. Yeah, and I felt like I had to like advertise myself a lot last year to share like what services I provide.
So you were doing a lot more outreach.
Yeah, and this year it's been more, hey, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? So that's been good. Yeah,
The travel still.
it's a lot. In fact, this year, because last year was still kind of shut down.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. I want to teach you one more. I'm not going to go deep, but I think you guys are all my EC kiddos. You're all my high flyers, so I think you'll get this. Here's ELA teachers. This is what I want you to hear. All of these short constructed responses initially are scored on the reading side. Okay. These short constructed responses are worth 2 points, and they're going to get it on the reading side, and they're assessing a reading skill, right? This is what you need to know about these. These all become elaborations on the writing side. So I'm going to have to know what cause and effect is on the reading side and write a paragraph about the causes of something or the effects of something or the similarities of something or the differences of something, all based on reading. It's a reading skill that they have to show me. But you guys, here's the power of this. If they know how to do it over here in reading, what I tell them is, oh my goodness, juniors, you know how to write a cause and effect paragraph, how to write a summary paragraph, how to write a descriptive paragraph, how to write a cause and effect paragraph. Here's how this matters for writing. All of those that you just did are now elaborations in writing. You have to show me cause and effect in your argument. You have to compare 2 things in your argument. You have to describe something in your informative. Do you see the power of this? So it's not isolated. I teach the strategy. We practice it in reading. We apply it in writing. If I can get my kids to think of that, this is the why. Strategy, impact reading, applying it to writing. Guys, that's the big dog here. Reading skill over here, elaboration is a writing skill. So I have to teach it here in reading before I can make them apply it in writing. That's going to be really key. So take out a blank piece of paper, please. I'm going to show you one more real quick before you get out. I got to give you the soft one, the good one. Okay. Now portrait, the landscape. You're going to fold this into 3 columns, kind of eyeball it. So this should be it's about the same length as this. You're gonna have 3 columns. So I fold this over, open it up, and then I'm gonna fold it again. So I have 3 columns landscape. Okay, now keep that folded. Keep that folded because you're gonna fold a lip on the top, a lip, and a on the bottom. Okay, so now you're gonna open it up and look like that. 3 sections of margin on the top and a margin on the bottom. Okay, now watch my lines, because I'm not gonna use all of them, but it's gonna help them organize. You're gonna go ahead and go across the top line. And you're gonna go across the bottom line. Okay. So we're gonna do what we call a multi-flow. That's my strategy. Multi-flow for cause and effect. And I can also use this when you guys for problem and solution as well. So I can use this for cause and effect, and I can also use it for the scale of problem and solution. Today, we're gonna use it for cause and effect. So I'm gonna circle that. We're not gonna do problem and solution, we're gonna do cause and effect. Okay, and remember you guys on the reading side of the Smarter Balance, they're never gonna have to write both. They're gonna be given one, not both. This is the other thing your kids need to know. It's not going to say write all the causes of something. They're going to use other keywords like give me what are the reasons for, or they're not going to say what are the effects of. They're not going to use the word cause and effect. They're going to use other terminology that goes with that. You have to teach your kids the why, the benefits, the consequences. You're going to have to change your language here. So we always start with T equals. Okay. There's my green. What are we going to be looking for? Okay, so we're going to be really looking at student failure, student dropout. So that's going to be our topic, student dropout. Okay, there's our topic. Okay, this middle part is where we're going to be, and this is the part that's usually left out when you go out there and search all your cause and effect graphic organizers. They all forget this really important component that I really like in here. Don't just say cause and effect of something. You have to start with what I call the event. Okay, what's the event? And oftentimes I can have multiple events inside one big event. So I've got to put my event here. That's really what we're focusing on is the event. Okay, so let's highlight that. There's our topic, it's student dropout. But it's an issue. Okay, or a question, usually my question. Why are students dropping out of school? Or we could say student dropout. And our dropout rate is growing, you guys. It's very sad. And it should be dropping out. Boy, end of the time here, you guys dropping out. Okay, there's my question. Why are students dropping out of school? Okay, and some of them are starting to drop out even as early as 7th and 8th grade. That's pretty sad. What's happening? It's very, very sad. Okay, now on this side is where we're going to list the causes. And the word that they need to see here are reasons. Okay, causes, but we're really looking for reasons. Okay, there's my yellow on this side. On this side, we're going to be focusing on effects. And again, I got to teach them what does effect mean. That means it could be benefits. It could be consequences. It could be a couple of different things depending on what the question is. Okay, so benefits and consequences of that. It could be either or if it's positive or negative. Okay, there's my other yellow. Now they're going to be asked one or the other based on how much evidence is in the sources that they've been given, because they're not going to give you an effect if there's not a whole lot of sources or a lot of evidence to support it. So it depends on the article that they're reading, so that will determine which question they get. So when I'm writing these, I can't just write an effect unless there's double the amount of evidence that's being asked to put. Okay, so we think that this is being really hard, you guys. But when I write a question and they have to give me 2 details, I cannot write that question unless there's triple the evidence that students can pick from. So it's not that hard, but it seems like it is. But it goes back to annotating as well. All right, so now we're going to go, now here's the thing, you can do one of two things. You could either go back to doing a sticky note, if you have one, because eventually they're gonna have to sort this out too, sort these out, or you could just go dash. Okay, so I'm gonna give you, you can put a sticky note here, but I want you to also maybe have a couple of different answers. So the first thing that I do is I want to know what are the reasons for student dropout? Do not let them start writing now. Turn and talk real quick, verbally. What are some reasons for why students are dropping out?
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe even like parent encouragement in some cases.
Yeah. Family doesn't value success. Need financial. It's like students. I think sometimes we are lacking success.
Yeah.
And a lack of and a belief that they could be successful.
Okay, would you write down two of them?
It is what it is.
Here are my two. Lack of success is one reason. They don't see the benefits of staying in school. That's what I would say would be my two top dogs. Now, obviously they'd have more, but for the sake of our time, at least give me two. So my two would be, they just come and there's no success. They're not being honored for their effort. They're failing and there's no support for them. So why come? Okay, so they don't see the benefits of it either. They're not going to go to college. They're not even going to go to a trade school. They're going to just start working for their mom and dad. So why in the heck would I go to college? Again, there's lots of reasons why. So do you see how this is really good? I would definitely start with this with just what they think and feel, but eventually I'm going to have to add it, an article or a video to add more evidence to it. So this is just phase one where we're just writing down what we think, but then I'm going to give them a video or an audio. All right, now you guys, here's what you have to know. Fold back the effect side, because if I only, sometimes you give them too much. So sometimes I'll say we're only going to focus on one side of the chart. That's called a one-sided multiflow, you guys. It's a one-sided because we're only going to just write and read about the causes of something. And then you're going to write a paragraph about the causes of something. Does it make sense? Usually I start with the effects because the effects are usually pretty concrete, and kids, it's easier for kids to come up with the effects than it is the causes for some reason. So I often start with, let's start with the effects. We're going to break that, hide that, and now it's a one-sided effects multiflow. You see what we're doing? We're only doing one side. All right, so let's go to the other side, and let's now do 2 or 3. What are the effects of, what are the consequences that happen to students if they drop out? All right, talk to your person first, your partner first. You can't write. Talk. What are some consequences for dropping out?
Limited opportunities. Limited career.
Yeah.
The effect of what when they drop out.
I'm looking for consequences.
I also think there's like a mental or social stigma, like when you drop out. That just even that has a big effect.
Well, then if you look at the average career, the average having less, so that has to be if they
Yeah.
and potentially then, you know.
Okay, guys, what did you guys say? I said a limited job opportunity. That's maybe a consequence if you drop out. What else did you guys say would be another consequence?
The effect on your peers. It spreads.
What else?
They pigeonhole themselves.
Oh, I like that word, pigeonhole. See, there's lots of things that you can do here. They need to know why. Again, sometimes we want to go right to content when we really need to have them think about some of the things that they're doing in the classroom that's really impacting their learning and impacting their life. What's another one? One more.
Lacking life skills sometimes.
Okay, so do you see how this is just a great one for cause and effect? I love this for cause and effect, you guys. Lots of different ways that you can get them to think through. Now, just remember, you guys, a short constructed response would be only one side of the multiflow, not both. I never have them write a cause and effect essay, ever. Because I know they're not going to be tested on, they're not going to get a cause and effect essay. They're going to get one side on the reading side, and then in writing, this becomes an elaboration. What are the consequences of, or what are the benefits of having school uniforms? See, I can use this. What causes this to, why are we having to have school uniforms? And what are the benefits of having school uniforms? You see, I'm going to change it based on what my question is. And then down here, you guys, again, what I'm going to say down here, I've already told you, what are the two things? Why is this important? And for me, what's going to trump this, for me personally, depending on the question, is that make a connection, because I'm going to say my connection is, oh my gosh, I was the first female in my family to graduate with a college degree in my family. Man, oh man, I can talk to that. Everyone else works the fields. It angers me to see that, because it's like, I didn't want to just work the fields. I didn't want to pick mint. I didn't want to hoe mint. I didn't want to pick potatoes. My family did that. They traveled. I did not want that kind of lifestyle. So see, I can definitely make a connection and say, for me, the benefits were, and if I didn't, the consequences were that I'd get stuck working, traveling from state to state, working in the field. And I just refused that for me. I was going to break that cycle. So do you see how this is just so good based on what your purpose is for your conclusion? You guys are fabulous today. Was I as fast as the morning guy? Straight over you so much. I also talk fast because I love this, and I see how this is so important for kids, giving them strategies and skills, and I just get excited about it. And I get excited when I have a group of secondary educators who go, oh, I can use this. This is going to help my students with reading, writing, speaking, listening. So you guys were fabulous. Before you leave, and at the end, you have to tell your partner of all the things we did: tree chart, race chart, multi-flow, common language. What's the biggest thing you're taking away from today's session? Turn and talk real quick, and then you may go. Leave the highlighter, please, for me. Thank you.
I think I can see the benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the ability to have, I gotta get better at
Yeah, I was never very good about like there's always printed,
Yeah.
fill it in. Like to get into the code stuff.
Yeah, I think.
Very careful with that.
I know. And I think.
Or it's all digital.
Yeah, or it's digital, right? And then that year,
On summary writing, there's a packet on cause and effect writing, and there's also a sheet that really shows the organization of short constructive responses. And first come first serve, this is from others. So come up with
Here for
graphics.
second.
Yeah.
This is your kind of part of your job description.